49ers Web Zone, No Huddle podcast, part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Al Sacco with fresh off of training camp, Brian Renick, and I can't wait to talk to him about that. But Brian, before we get into what you saw at training camp, and obviously we're going to talk about quarterbacks and everything else, the news to me, I think the big news, maybe it's not huge news because I think everyone feels like Nick Bosa and the 49ers are going to come to an agreement at some point. But the news right now to me, and I don't feel like a lot of people are talking about it, is that he's not there. It was said in the press conference with Shanahan and Lynch, he's not here. He's not going to be here until the contract's done, which no one in their right mind would expect him to do that. He's not going to go on the field and risk injury with all the money he has coming. But I was thinking about this and I'm like, well, why isn't this done? What could the sticking points be? Here's what I think, and this is just speculation, but here's what I think. Nick Bosa in his camp probably want him to be the highest paid defensive player in the league, and he is worth every penny of it. Now, if you look at the contracts, what contracts are we comparing? And the two I thought were the two highest for defensive players, Aaron Donald and TJ Watt. So Aaron Donald, and I'm going off a spot rack here for the numbers. He had a 3-year, $95 million contract. That's about $31.5 million a year. And the total guarantee said $95 million. So it looks like that's a guaranteed deal for him. TJ Watt signed a 4-year, $112 million deal. And his average salary is $28 million. And he had $80 million guaranteed at signing. So the way I look at this is Bosa's camp is probably saying to the 49ers, we want Aaron Donald money or more. I thought it would be 4 years, $135 million and $100 million in guarantees. I don't know if he's trying to get a fully guaranteed contract, but I think the $100 million in guarantees takes him over Donald. That would get it done. As far as I don't know, my estimation. But TJ Watt's deal would come in $80 million guaranteed. So are the Niners saying to Nick Bosa's camp, we're going to put you in the middle of Donald and Watt? Aaron Donald won a Super Bowl. Aaron Donald, whatever, I don't know, whatever they would say to make it work. I mean, Nick Bosa is a defensive player of the year, so you can't take a lot of things away from Nick Bosa. But they're saying, okay, we're going to give you 88 guaranteed, and his camp's going, nope, we want at least over Aaron Donald. That's the only thing that I could see that would be a sticking point, because if not, why the hell is the most important player in your team? Why is this contract not done? What do you think?
I think there's a couple of things. We were talking off air before this, and I know that you and our fearless leader David Bonilla both talked about how this is kind of something that we haven't really talked about enough. That possibly this is something that isn't getting enough publicity, because it should be a no-brainer, right? Like they should have already extended him, and he should be in camp. Like there's no way that they're not going to. But we also looked up really the 3 homegrown players that the 49ers have signed to big money extensions. And that would be Fred Warner, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel. Or I should say Kittle was first, and then Warner, and then Deebo Samuel. And if you look at the dates of when those were signed, Kittle signed his extension on August 14th, when he was signed. Deebo signed his August 1st. And then Fred Warner signed his July 22nd. So we're really still in that window, right? From July 22nd to August 14th. We are recording this on July 28th. So we're still in that window. But one of the things that I think is interesting about the question of why isn't this done, and what do we think that Bosa's camp wants, it comes down to this. There's really 2 factors in every contract. And it's, do you want the most guaranteed money, or do you want the highest average annual value? Right. And I don't think any player is going to be able to get both. Right. So what is more important to Bosa? And I would say this, if they are hesitant to give him Donald money, I would argue that the reason being is because one thing that Aaron Donald has not been is injured. Ever. He has not missed time with the Rams, or at least significant time that I can recall. I could be wrong there, but I don't believe that he has. And obviously Bosa missed the 2020 season with his ACL, came back, been incredible since then, hasn't really missed time since then, but he also had injuries in college as well. He had that torn abductor muscle at Ohio State. He also tore an ACL, I believe, in high school, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got a bit of an injury history. And so I'm wondering if perhaps the sticking point is guaranteed money versus average annual value. Because average annual value, I mean, if we're being perfectly honest, it's an inflated number anyway. It doesn't really matter. That is, I think agents prefer the higher average annual value than the guaranteed money, because again, it just makes it look like, hey, I negotiated this deal. This is the highest deal that's ever been negotiated. Look at this average annual value. When in reality, they don't actually see, like Donald doesn't actually see $31.5 million a year. That's just what the average annual value is of his extension, along with the contract that he already had. And so that's because Bosa still has one more year left, right? And that part, this is going to be an extension, which means that fifth year is a part of the calculation when it comes to average annual value and all of that. And so I have to wonder if the sticking point is guaranteed money. And if it is, I mean, you said Donald, that 3-year extension was 95 million, and that was all guaranteed, right?
Yeah, according to Spot Rack, yeah.
Yeah. So I would imagine if I'm Nick Bosa's agent, I'm going in and saying, listen, go 5 years, guarantee me $100 million, and then we can inflate this average annual value to whatever we want. Doesn't matter, right? But give us that higher guaranteed money, right? Make that the benchmark, and then because the average annual value, it's funny money, right? Like you could make it whatever you want. And so, and I think if I'm the 49ers, I'm also trying to go 5 years at least, because that helps my cap. So I have no fears that it's not going to get done. And the other thing is, and I want to choose my words here carefully because I love Debo. I am not at all concerned about what Nick Bosa is going to look like when he finally gets to camp. He's going to be in incredible shape. He's going to be ready to hit the ground running, because that's just who he is as a person. He's a freak when it comes to his nutrition, his training, his off season, all of it. Right. So it'll get done. And I think in the end, I would imagine that what he comes away with might not be the highest average annual value, but I think he'll get the most guaranteed. And I would imagine that that's probably around $100 million.
And Aaron Donald, I'm looking at this now. He's a 7-time first-team All-Pro. He's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
He won the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And obviously, he's played longer than Bosa, but Bosa's a 1-time first-team All-Pro. He also won the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he's a 1-time Defensive Player of the Year. So again, not that it's taking anything away from Bosa, but if you're having a contract discussion,
right,
and you're trying to make a point of why we don't have to pay you as much as this guy, those are the things that may get thrown.
And that's fair.
He's won the Defensive Player of the Award 3 times. He's a 7-time first-team All-Pro. I mean, Aaron Donald's one of the best defensive players ever. Yeah. So, but where we are on this, I think, is anybody who's a great player like this, when their contract comes up, they usually reset the market, right? Yeah. And if the Niners, and I'm not saying they were thinking anything different. I don't know what the sticking points are here, but if the Niners were thinking anything different, they're nuts. They were going to have to pay him more than Aaron Donald. And if it comes out less than Aaron Donald, I'll eat my words, I guess, but I'll be shocked if it does. They're going to have to make it, like you said, whether it's guaranteed money or whatever it is, that, hey, you're the best we feel like you're the best defensive player in the league. We're paying you like you're the best defensive player in the league. They're going to have to pay him quarterback money. And again, we all feel as if this is going to happen. But they mentioned it in the presser, and then it kind of all got swept under the rug. Like, all right, he'll be in soon. Don't worry about it. I think he will be too. And you gave those dates, but Kittle wasn't holding out. And Debo came back and he was holding in or whatever, but he was out of shape and he didn't have a good year. I think, Nick Bosa is a machine. I don't think for a second he's going to be out of shape. Yeah. But if this lingers into mid-August, late August, we've seen people have an effect. We've seen people tweak hamstrings. We've just seen little things like that. I'm not saying he's going to come in and have a terrible year or he's going to come in and get majorly injured. But what if he tweaks something and he misses 4 weeks and you're trying to get a number 1 seed? It's things like that. So I just wish, with the importance of Nick Bosa, even with the other guys, they could have got away without Debo for a little while. They could have got away without Kittle for a little while. These guys have been hurt, and they have been fine with them.
Yeah.
They really can't get away without Nick Bosa. They
True.
really can't, especially when we've talked about the lack of depth on the edges without him. They need him in there, and they need the contract. And we're not trying to be doomsday with this. He's going to get in. It may be in the next couple of days. I've just kind of been like, everybody was just kind of like, oh, okay, man. Yeah, he'll get there. But it could have ramifications if it lingers. And I think all the fans are with us right now. Just get it done. Get it done.
Yeah. And like you said, and speaking of quarterback money, like you said, there's no, I have no qualms with him not being there right now. And the reason I have no qualms with him being right there or not being there right now is evidenced by what happened yesterday with Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow is trying to negotiate his extension. Justin Herbert just signed his record-breaking contract, just a massive, massive deal. Joe Burrow got carted off the field yesterday with a non-contact injury. Now, they said it was a calf strain. I don't know if you watched that video. That certainly looks like more than just a calf strain.
It looks scary. It did look scary.
And what it looks like legitimately is an Achilles tear, is what it looks like, because the way that he steps and then immediately his weight is off it, and then his foot kind of dangles the wrong direction when he lifts it up off the ground. And a lot of times I have a buddy who tore both Achilles. He tore one, got it fixed, and then like a year later tore the other one. I've talked to people who've torn their Achilles, and they basically say like it just feels like you get kicked in the back of the calf. Like especially a lot of it happens playing basketball, and they're like, someone landed on the back of my leg. That's what it feels like. And you watch that video, and the way that he comes up lame, you're like, oof. And it was also the same leg that he had his knee injury. Now, I don't think it's a knee injury, but I don't know, man. It looks more than just a calf strain, but we'll see. But that's a perfect example of why players hold out from camp when they're trying to negotiate their extension. Imagine you're Joe Burrow, right? He absolutely deserves a higher contract than Justin Herbert, not because Justin Herbert isn't good, but because Burrow has accomplished more than Justin Herbert. And so, yeah, I have no problem with Bosa not being there. And I don't even think the 49ers have a problem with him not being there. I think they understand the situation. I think everyone there is being an adult in the room, and they're just trying to get it hammered out. But I know Rob Guerrera of his own podcast network now he tweeted yesterday. He was like, someone said, do you think they're close? And his response was, it sounds like they're not anywhere close. And so I hope that's not the case, but that concerns me a tad if they're not close on July 28th, because there shouldn't be a reason why you're not close. Right.
That's the thing that kind of gets to me about it, is not that it gets, maybe it does get to me a little bit, because again, I'm all in, right? Everybody's all in this year for the Super Bowl. Like, you've had a long time. You kind of knew what it was going to be.
Right.
Why is there this disconnect?
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see when the final numbers come out. We'll see what he ends up at and everything. It will get done, but it's just, it seemed a little bit like this is the one dude you don't want to mess with. No. He might really be the most important player on your team. That's crazy to say over a quarterback, but considering the Niners kind of have system guys who are an extension of Kyle Shanahan, Bosa might be the most important dude. So you got to get him in there. I was just a little bit taken. And I said a couple days before camp, I might have tweeted out, like, this has got to happen soon, right? Like, am I the only one thinking, like, why have we not heard this yet? And some people are, oh, no, it's going to be fine. And I'm like, okay, maybe it will be eventually, but I thought this was going to be done. We're going to pull up the camp and they were going to announce it, type thing. Like, there's no way you're going to let Nick Bosa linger. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. Again, I'm not trying to be doomsday with it. I guess I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, there's a handful of dudes in the NFL that aren't quarterbacks where like a contract extension is like, well, yeah, obviously, because they're they're one of the best players in the NFL. So the fact that, again, and this is what the 49ers are, though, when it comes to Parag Marate, they are very much they do what they can to make the deals as team friendly as possible. And that eventually is going to maybe come back to bite you in the ass, because there are some guys like a Nick Bosa or a Trent Williams where they're not going to sign a team friendly deal because they don't need to. They are the best at what they do. And, Williams had to use the Chiefs as leverage to finally get the 49ers to do what they needed to do. Bosa doesn't have leverage outside of, then I'm just not showing up. So
yeah,
we'll see. I'm hard pressed to think that it doesn't get done. I think it just is a matter of, and maybe time frame, right? At the farther you get into camp is the tipping point. But yeah, they need to be close. They need to be closer, and it sounds like they're not.
So Brian, you were at camp yesterday, and
yes,
again, I'm logistically challenged, so I don't have that luxury. But I'm really interested to get your opinion on what you saw, and I want to ask about the quarterbacks, because you see all these things. I love reading stats as much as the next person. I love the camp reports. I like reading about people said and think and what they saw. I like it. I read all different kinds of opinions, and they're usually varying opinions. Yep. But the emphasis that we place on completions and completion percentage in camp is ridiculous to me. Absolutely ridiculous. And I think I see those numbers and I take them with an absolute grain of salt. I do not care. I do not care. But just in terms of what you saw, in terms of who looked good in the pocket, how Purdy looked throwing the ball, like just what were your takes on what you saw?
Yeah, so obviously stats always have context behind them, and people, especially on social media, tend to forget that, or tend to put way too much stock in just the stats, like you said. I'll be perfectly honest. I tweeted it out yesterday, and I stand by it today. The best quarterback at camp yesterday was Sam Darnold. He just was. Now, that being said, what I thought was most interesting about yesterday at camp, and they'll have practice again today. I believe Purdy will practice, because they are I believe the restriction that they put on is 2 days on, 1 day off from throwing. And I'm sure that will ramp up as training camp progresses. But Purdy didn't participate in team drills on Wednesday, which was the first day of camp. So yesterday was his first day participating in team drills, being dressed, being out there with the team. He took all of the first team reps. Nobody else took a first team rep at quarterback besides Brock Purdy. And then Trey Lance and Sam Darnold split the second team reps. And then Brandon Allen got all of the third team reps. And I was excited. So when you go to training camp at Levi's, you park in the red lot, which is the parking lot right in front of the stadium. And you go in through security, and then you get in line, and they have these little shuttles that take you around the back of the stadium to the practice fields. And so I boarded my little shuttle, and right there in front was Brad Graham, the SF Niners. And I was like, sweet. I got to know Brad a little bit over the past few years, hung out a few times down there. So that was awesome. And then also, once we got in there, saw Ted from Ted Talks Ball, sat with us, and then Rohan, the boy wonder from 49ers Web Zone. So it was the four of us up there. Oh, and also our SF Niners, if you guys follow that Twitter account, was there as well. So it was what was that? 1, 2, 3, 5 of us, the 5 of us. In fact, I was on TikTok last night, and I follow the 49ers account, and they had a camp video up there, and I'm watching, and I see the play where Sam Womack almost comes up with an interception off of Trey Lance. And I look in the stands, and you can see the 5 of us just standing at the top of our bleacher watching. So I was like, yeah, we made the 49ers TikTok account. But I remember talking to Rohan and Brad, because I was sitting between them, and I was like, the most interesting thing to me is that they are splitting second team reps with Darnold and Lance, and Allen is getting all of the third team reps, which means that Allen actually had more plays than Lance and Darnold did, which just doesn't, it was odd to me. It was just
odd.
It was an interesting thing to note. But with that being said, obviously Purdy's going to be rusty. This is his first practice back. What was most important was to see, what did his ball look like? Does it look like he has lost arm strength? Does it look like he's lost velocity? And the overwhelming thought there is absolutely not. He looked great in terms of arm strength, which again, like I said, to me is the most important thing.
Yep.
He was in warmups. He was throwing, 45, 50 yards during warmups. And then in team drills, he had 2 deep throws that he went for, and he overshot both of them. So do you want him to complete it? Sure. But again, when you're looking for arm strength, that's a great indication. But to me, the one that was most impressive was a throw over the middle to Brandon Ayuk. It was probably a 15-yard throw, but absolute frozen rope right to him, and and put it in a place where only Ayuk could get it, and Ayuk did. And so the concerns in terms of arm strength, I think, have been answered, at least in this first practice. Now, we have no idea how his arm feels today. And if it's not feeling great, I'm sure we won't know that. But we don't know how his arm feels today. But from what we know and what we can see, I don't think there's concern there. So then it became, all right, so how are these guys playing? And again, of the 3, not including Brandon Allen, so Darnold, Lance, and Purdy, Darnold looked the best yesterday. He was decisive. He was he made the right reads. He was the only one that didn't throw an absolute "what the hell are you doing" throw. Lance did, and almost got intercepted by Sammy Womack. If Demetrius Flanagan-Foles didn't tip it, it would have been intercepted by Womack, because Womack ran the route better than the receiver did. So again, why are you throwing it there? And then the same with Purdy. That interception that Purdy threw, that Tayshaun Gibson, it was a pick six. Tayshaun Gibson picked it off, threw it directly to Tayshaun Gibson, and the receiver was double covered. So again, just a poor decision. And then Lance's was a poor decision. And then Lance had a few errant throws, and didn't really push the ball down the field, which I thought was interesting. But somebody made a good point. One of the biggest knocks on Lance by either people on social media or even some beat writers or people in NFL media was his short to intermediate game. And it certainly looks like he's focusing on that in his reps, because like I said, he was not pushing the ball downfield. But at the same time, none of the plays that he had, none of the routes were going deep. So that could also be something that the coaching staff is focused on as well.
Wants him to work on. And that's why these numbers are crazy, because you don't know what the plan is coming in. You don't know what they're trying to do. So if somebody goes 5 of 6 and they're like, oh, well, they're all dump offs, maybe that's what the coaches wanted to see. Maybe that's what they're working on. It's practice. They're working on things.
Right.
You're not going out there and trying to put up 35 points and winning a game. You're working on things.
Yeah.
So like you mentioned, you do want to see, who looks good and what they're working on. But the notion that these numbers mean anything is just
they do
insane.
not.
But
they do not at all.
The big takeaway was, all we wanted to see, what does Brock's arm look like?
Yep.
Looked really good. I saw too. It looked strong. And now we see, like you said, how is it going to recover? That we don't know. But I didn't expect anybody expecting him to come in. He hasn't played football since January. Expecting him to come in and light it up. Come on. It's going to take some time. Now, I'm thankful that we're going through this in late July instead of late August, if that's when he
exactly
they can get through these kinks. But like you said, he took all the first team reps. He's QB1, unless he plays himself out of that.
Yeah,
because the way it looks like the other guys are playing just who they are, it doesn't look like they're going to take this huge jump overnight. and say, whoa, they're just way better than Brock. It looks like this is Brock's job to lose rather than anybody else can compete with him. That's the way it seems to me. But the
I would agree
Brandon
with that.
Allen thing is, well, it's not bizarre because this is what I've been thinking since they signed him. But I guess I didn't think they were going to give him this many reps. Brandon Allen was signed, I believe, to be on this team. The loser of Darnold and Lance will probably get dealt. I could be wrong, but the notion that this team, we got to have 4 quarterbacks. No, you don't. Last year was, I know they have injury issues at quarterbacks, but going through 4 is a fluky thing. No other team ever anywhere thinks like that we need 4 QBs to get through the season. They're going to get rid of either Darnold or Lance at some point. I really think that's going to happen, and Brandon Allen's the 3rd string QB. We've talked about this ad nauseum. He was the backup to Joe Burrow. He's going to come here and be on the practice squad. He can probably be a backup on half the teams in the league. So,
well, hey, with this Burrow injury, maybe he's the
maybe he goes back. Who knows, right? But
yeah,
we have to let this play out.
Yeah.
Again, we've just been talking about it ad nauseum. But the Lance stuff, it's frustrating for me. And maybe Trey Lance will be a great quarterback. Maybe he's a bust. Yeah. Maybe he's somewhere in between. But what's frustrating for me is just, especially coming into this year, doesn't even look like he's being given a chance to compete really for the starter. It looks like it's a done deal. Yeah. And like, hey, now you're going to split reps with this guy who is a bust, even though Kyle Shanahan thinks he can be a reclamation project. And then maybe this other guy has been a career backup too. I just don't what have they seen that they can talk him up all they want to. The proof is what you see on the field. He's competing to be like a 2-3. They traded multiple first-round picks for him to go up to number 3 2 years ago. It's just such a bizarre situation in how they're handling it. It's bizarre.
Speaking of Kyle Shanahan and his views on Sam Darnold, did you see that quote that he had about Darnold and Steve Young?
Yeah, do you have that in front of you for the people?
I don't have it in front of me, but the gist of the comment was, it took Steve Young a long time before he became Steve Young. Like, maybe Sam Darnold can do the same thing. And it was like, yikes, that's putting a lot of pressure on Sam. Like, that's undue pressure on Sam. You don't invoke the name of Steve Young as the coach of the 49ers. If you were the coach of another team and you wanted to bring up Steve Young, sure, whatever, right? Yeah. But you can't bring up Montana and Young, and that's what's been happening last year and now here, right? Where they started bringing up Montana with Purdy, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, let's pump the brakes. But yeah, and Shanahan even said we could possibly carry 4 quarterbacks. And I'm like, that is nonsense. You are not carrying 4 quarterbacks. Teams don't even carry 3 quarterbacks. I know this team is going to, but teams rarely carry 3. It's the starter, the backup, and then you got a guy on the practice squad. And the reason you don't is because you have a limited number of players that you can have on your roster. It's 53, right? And if you're carrying 4 quarterbacks, that means that you are losing either a defensive back, a defensive lineman, or an offensive lineman. And the way that those positions get injured, way more than the quarterback position gets injured, you're really hamstringing yourself. So no, that's nonsense. They are not going to carry 4 quarterbacks. They are going to carry 3, though, because of what happened last year. And that already gives them constraints that is going to make it more difficult to put together a more complete roster than they had even last year. So, yeah, they're not carrying 4. And I think you're right. I think whoever loses Darnold and Lance, I think they will look to deal that player. Now, I said it, I think with Zane last week. If the 49ers trade Trey Lance, they save, maybe I tweeted it. Either way, if they trade Trey Lance, and again, they need somebody to trade for him, so there is that. But if they do trade him, they save about $3.8 million on the cap this season, which for a team that is cash strapped or cap strapped, if you will, that's a big deal. And so, I don't, lots of people want to poo-poo that idea, again, because of who Lance is, because of what they gave up to acquire him, his draft pedigree, all of that. But at a certain point, you got to see the writing on the wall that this team does not seem, despite what they're saying in the media, this team doesn't look like they believe very much in Trey Lance anymore.
No.
And I'm not saying that he's not liked. I'm not saying that the players don't like him. I'm not saying the players don't respect him in that locker room. I'm not even saying that Shanahan doesn't like Trey. But lip service doesn't mean anything when he's splitting reps, second team reps with Sam Darnold, and Brandon Allen is getting all of the third team reps. You don't think that those extra third team reps would be good for him, right? Like, you don't think that Trey Lance would benefit from as many reps as you can give him? That's what he needs.
And if they're invested in him, why are they not giving them to him? That's
right.
If you're that invested in it. And look at this 49ers QB situation. Take your red and gold colored glasses off.
Right.
Pretend this is the Falcons. Pretend it's the Titans, and just pick up the 49ers quarterbacks and move them to that team. You'd look at it and say, oh, this Lance dude ain't going to be around. They don't like him. Like, they give up all this stuff to get him, and now he's fighting with Sam Darnold and maybe Brandon Allen. There's something off there. So a lot of people I like him too. I still am a lot. I'm rooting for Trey Lance. Like,
I love the kid.
I loved him coming out of college. I thought it was take a while, but I loved him coming out of college. There were a lot of people like, oh God, he looks fantastic. He looks ready now. And I probably got caught up in some hype there, because again, when you really go back and look at it, how the hell do you ever expect this kid to be ready with how green he was,
right?
With how inexperienced he was. He needed time, but it's just bizarre the way that it's really not. It is. He's not getting treated well. And listen, this regime has done a lot of things right. They've been a tremendous regime. Tremendous. They're one of the best teams and rosters in the league. But you can still be really good at a lot of things and still screw up other things. Everybody in every walk of life does that. No one's perfect. No. And the way that they've handled the quarterback there's been a lot of head scratching stuff, man. And this is just another one. And I like Purdy. I think Purdy can be an extension of Shanahan, and I think that's what Shanahan sees in him. And I think he can be very successful on this team. I think Lance's ceiling is super high, but it's going to take a while. But they don't seem like they give a shit. They seem right now like they're like, you know what? If he's good on the Falcons in 3 years, we don't care. We're worried about the next year or two.
And that's where I've always said that seems short-sighted, right? Like, what is the we talk about windows, and we've talked about this, right? And they seem so focused on winning a Super Bowl right now in this window with these players. And it's like, I understand that. Like, I would love to see George Kittle win a Super Bowl. I would love to see Trent Williams win a Super Bowl. You know, I would love to see Fred Warner win a Super Bowl, although I don't think he's part of the same category as Kittle and Williams. Like 100%, I would love to see that. But as a fan of the 49ers, right? Not a fan of Trent Williams and George Kittle, a fan of the team. What is the easiest way to have a Super Bowl window for your franchise is to have a franchise quarterback. Yeah. And it seems like they are sacrificing Trey Lance's development for the sake of trying to win a Super Bowl this year or next year.
Well, that's where what they're doing.
Right. That's right. That's what that is. Correct. And that's where it's like, as a fan, to me, that's frustrating, because do I want to see the 49ers win a Super Bowl? Absolutely. Right. It's been 25 years since they have. But as a fan, I am more concerned with my team being competitive for a Super Bowl every season than like doing what the Rams did and going all in, getting a Super Bowl, and now being quite literally a friggin' dumpster fire, because you know they're in cap hell. So I think it was a mistake to draft Trey Lance, not because of who Trey Lance is, but because of the mindset that the team had, which was we need to win now. Then don't draft the most green quarterback prospect we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I love the kid, and I would love to see him develop and get his opportunity with the 49ers, but that does not seem to be the case. So what I actually hope now, I feel like I'm this offseason up until probably the last 2 weeks, I've been very vocal about hoping for Trey Lance to get a shot and talking about why don't you just start Purdy on the pup? Well, it's obvious that Purdy's ready. Okay. So that changes things. So there's no chance that Lance is going to be able to win the starting job. So I would love to see him go somewhere where he can develop and then can compete for that. And so my dream scenario is that my guy down in South Beach, Mike McDaniel, calls up Kyle and is like, listen, Kyle, we'll give you a conditional second round pick, right? Send me Trey, right? We're not convinced that Tua can make it through a season. And we're not convinced that, we can invest in him long-term because of his injury history, right? Like the guy is one concussion away from probably needing to retire. Why don't you go get Trey Lance? Imagine Trey Lance. Imagine that offense, right? Imagine that offense with with Trey Lance, who's a threat to run the ball, not like we thought he could be, but a threat to run the ball. But just just deep balls to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, right? Just that bazooka that just whoop. I think he'd be incredible down there. So that's my new social media campaign. get Trey Lance to Miami. And I'll tell you what, I will 100% buy a Trey Lance Miami Dolphins jersey.
Could you imagine if we're in December and Sam Darnold starting for the 49ers and they're like, I don't know, 8-5 and like kind of muddling their way along with the season, and Trey Lance is Tua's hurt and Lance is in Miami just throwing bombs to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Could you imagine?
Oh my God. 49ers Twitter would burn down.
People would lose their minds. I can't even process that right now. But I'm gonna say this season's gonna be really, really interesting, and it's gonna be fun. We're gonna see a team that, like you said, is all in to win now, with a quarterback room that we're like, what the hell is going on? And again, when this is something like we've never seen before, even with the Harbaugh years. Alex Smith was like that steady kind of dude, and then Kaepernick was Kaepernick. We knew that you could. He was a little unconventional, but you knew you were going to be able to win with him, and you knew he was the starter. He played 2 straight years without 16 games. But this team, we don't really know. Purdy's a QB1. Is his arm going to hold up the whole year? Is he going to continue what he did last year? We think and we hope on both. Is Lance even going to be around? Is Lance going to take that next step? Is Sam Darnold the quarterback of an all-in team trying to win the Super Bowl? It's crazy. It's just crazy. So again, I'm super excited and I feel good about this. I'm optimistic, but there's a part of me in the back of my head that's like, it's December and Sam Darnold starting and we're talking about the Super Bowl. I don't know. Let's just see what happens. But dude, never a dull moment with this team. Unbelievable.
Never.
So, man. All right. Well, Bri, I'm glad football's back, dude. I'm glad you got
too. Me too. It smelled like football and it was beautiful.
Yeah, it is. I just can't wait. Today is what, July? We're recording this on July 28th.
Yep.
And I'm already thinking about like Oktoberfests and like pumpkin beers. I'm one of the few people in the world I think would like pumpkin beers, but like, and just sitting on my couch and just doing the football thing. And I just can't wait. So, summer be damned. I want the season.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Well, and especially for you and your Yankees right now. Like that's been a disappointment.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that dumpster fire of an organization. Give me a break. Awful joke of a team.
Oh man.
Started. All right, we're gonna get out of here. For Brian, I'm Al.
Later.